The European Union has hit pause on its planned trade retaliation against the United States, following a bold threat from President Donald Trump to impose a 30% tariff on all EU goods starting August 1, 2025. This escalation comes after months of tense trade talks, with Trump citing a $235 billion US trade deficit, with the EU in 2024 as a key reason for his aggressive stance. In a letter to EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen, Trump warned that any EU retaliation would trigger even higher US tariffs, potentially escalating tensions further. Von der Leyen responded swiftly, announcing the EU would extend its suspension of countermeasures on $25 billion worth of US goods until early August. These countermeasures were initially a response to earlier US tariffs on EU steel and aluminum, which the EU paused in April to foster negotiations. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz warned that a 30% tariff would hit Europe's largest economy to the core, particularly its export-driven industries. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed strong disapproval, urging the EU to stand firm and consider proportionate countermeasures if talks fail. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni took a cautious approach, warning that a trade war would harm both sides of the Atlantic. The EU's decision to delay retaliation reflects a desire to avoid it for that trade war, with von der Leyen emphasizing a two-track approach: negotiate and prepare. Trump's tariff threats extend beyond the EU, with Mexico also facing a 30% tariff and Canada a 35% levy, raising fears of a broader global trade conflict. The EU is also exploring a second package of countermeasures targeting $72 billion in US goods. Though details remain undisclosed, industries like French wine and German cars are bracing for impact, with producers warning of significant losses if tariffs are imposed. Financial markets have shown resilience, but analysts warn that a 30% tariff could disrupt global trade and rattle investor confidence. The euro slipped to a 3-week low after Trump's announcement, reflecting market uncertainty over the looming tariff deadline. Trump's aggressive trade stance is part of his America First agenda, aiming to reduce trade deficits and boost US manufacturing. However, critics argue that tariffs could raise consumer prices in the US and strain relations with key allies like the EU. The EU's anti-coercion instrument could be activated, allowing trade restrictions or export controls if negotiations collapse. EU trade ministers met in Brussels on July 14 to strategize, with most favoring diplomacy over immediate retaliation. With less than 3 weeks until the August 1 deadline, the EU faces pressure to secure a deal and avoid a costly trade war. Will the EU and US find common ground, or is a global trade war on the horizon? Stay tuned for updates on this developing story.